warm welcome everyone to our event today, which is going to tell you more interest group developing a dementia friendly community. My name is Maria Brent and I am a senior lecturer in the Department of Social Work and Social Care. So there's not many of us, I think, today who haven't been touched by dementia, either on a personal or professional context. My own work as a social worker, working with older people, was very much involved in that area, and I've brought that passion to my work as an educator. And part of the special interest group is enabling us to come together as a community of practice where we can improve our knowledge and skills in supporting people living with dementia. So today's event will be telling you more about our special interest group. It will tell you how and why we've got here, and most importantly for me, how hopefully you can get involved. So I represent the University at Kingston Dementia Friendly Community Group, which is a group that's facilitated by the Alzheimer's Society. And that group is made up of partner agencies, the council, hospital, amazing community resources that come together on a regular basis to look at how we can improve the lives of people living with dementia and raise awareness. And through that group, we've galvanized that commitment from partner agencies who will be coming along today to tell us about their work and also to tell us about some fantastic learning opportunities that you will have and be able to get involved in partner agencies at the hospital, possible care homes, that you can develop your skills and knowledge. So it's about having time to develop your person-centered skills, to have opportunities to just be alongside people that are living with dementia, to see them and not necessarily just the diagnosis. So we're really hoping that you're going to get involved in that today, and we're going to be telling you more about that. So you're probably aware that we have a strong commitment at Kingston University to our students and the community about raising awareness of dementia. We've had events in the past. The most recent one was in May last year, where we had a fantastic online event, half-day event, which included Grandma Remember Me, a really powerful place, as some of you may have remembered and been part of that. So we wanted to galvanise that interest, to really kind of pull that together as part of our special interest group, which we're going to be telling you more about today. In terms of dementia, the Alzheimer's Society, I'm just looking at the figures, over 900,000 people are living with dementia in the UK. And 200,000 will be diagnosed this year. So that means one person is diagnosed with dementia every 3 minutes. So part of our group today as a community is coming together to enable to support those people in terms of raising our skills awareness, knowledge exchange, sharing resources, ideas, our stories of good practice and how we can improve and support people living with dementia and their families and carers. And how we're going to do that today, I'm delighted that we have some guest speakers with us today. We have Katrina, who has been a carer for her mum living with dementia, and she'll be talking about her experiences and what was important to her as a carer. We also have Rebecca, who's a social work student who's been working out on placement supporting people living with dementia, and she has her story to tell and wants to share some of the good practice and her reflections on that. We also have Simon Bath, who's a manager in adult community services, again telling us about a situation that he's been involved in and sharing those good practice messages. We'll then have an open question and answer session, and we have our colleagues from Kingston Hospital. I'm delighted to have them here, and also partner agencies will be telling you about their great work and also opportunities about how you can get involved. So we will have a question and answer session at the end. So do post questions in the chat and we'll be able to pick those up. I'm also mindful that what we talk about today may raise strong emotions for people if you've been involved or personally affected by dementia. So we'll also be sharing some helplines for you through the Alzheimer's Society and also CRUISE. So we'll make sure that you have that information, that if this session throws up strong emotions for you, as I'm sure it will do, that you'll be able to get some support. So thank you so much for joining us. And I would love to, first of all, introduce you to our first speaker, and that's Katrina. Thank you. So a really warm welcome, Katrina. Thank you so much for coming along today to join in our event on our special interest group. And I know that you've been the carer for a loved one who was living with dementia. So we're really grateful for you coming along today to talk about those experiences. Could you tell us a little bit more about your loved one? What was the situation, Katrina?
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me. It was my mum that had dementia. She lived with it, I would say, for about 6 or 7 years and had a diagnosis for about 5 years. We kind of knew something was going wrong. We could see changes in her behaviour. We could see, classic symptoms really, that, forgetfulness, repetition all the time. Also, worryingly, she had been living really well independently, and she began to forget really important things, like we noticed she wasn't eating very well. And so eventually, we did contact the GP and had a referral for a dementia assessment. And what was really surprising was that although we kind of knew that the diagnosis was going to be positive, that she had dementia of some sort, what I wasn't prepared for was the shock of it, really. So we had a dementia nurse come to deliver the information to us at home. And what I wasn't prepared for was the kind of emotional, huge wave of shock that we got that came with it. And it was kind of a mixture of, shock and fear, and just a kind of an anxiety about, this isn't going to end well. Where's, it's a terminal illness. Where's it going to go? How bad is it going to get for my mum? What's it going to look like at the end? And, what everybody who has a loved one with a terminal illness wants to know is, is your relative, how are they going to suffer, and how bad is it going to be? And I think that's where the specialist dementia nurse really helped, because she was very calm. She delivered the information calmly and also kind of realised the emotional impact it was having on us. And she kind of gave us time, because, to be quite honest, I couldn't take it all in. I remember trying to look at the report and it just wasn't making sense. And so she gave us time, she gave us the report, she repeated information again. And then importantly, what she said was, she left us with the written information and said, she was going to go, but we could contact her with any questions we had, because, to be honest, I hadn't really taken a lot of it on board. So it was good to have her as someone you could contact. And also, I think what was really useful and important at that stage was that she gave us a list of agencies to contact as well. And eventually, as we got over the shock and started to sort things out, we got in touch with Age UK, and they have a really good advice line, and we booked a call on there. And they gave lots and lots of really useful information about benefits to claim, how to get keyed into adult services, how to get an assessment, lots and lots of things, even down to, how to get in touch with a continence nurse over those kinds of issues. So the Age UK were really good. And importantly, my mum lived in Lambeth, and there was a Lambeth carers group, and that was there because, when you're a carer and when you get kind of information like that, it's a very lonely place to be. It can be. And we got in touch with sort of Lambeth carers. We were able to talk to the workers there. And from time to time, we did go to events to meet other carers, and that was very, very useful, to share experience and to get mutual support in that way.
I do appreciate it must have been a really difficult time for you as well. And so in terms of your mum's illness and the support that she had, was she at home, or did she go into a care home?
So initially, for as long as possible, she was at home. So we got in touch with adult services and we arranged a package of care for her. So she had carers calling at times during the day, and we slept over with her at night. That was initially, it took a long time to get in place, because obviously the level of kind of stress on adult services, is huge, and I know it's only getting worse and worse. So it did take a long time to get in place, and it was quite a stressful procedure. Once it was in place, you also have a kind of an anxiety about who's going to come and who's going to do the care. And what I hadn't realised was how anxious that we'd feel about handing over her care, although we were grateful for it and we needed it, but it was just how anxious you feel sometimes about handing her care over to somebody who is a stranger, really. So, and it's quite intimate care that she needed, and coming into her home. So I think there was a lot of anxiety around, when you're a carer, you become quite hypervigilant to your loved one's needs. So you're always thinking, especially when they have something like dementia where their mental capacity is going and they can't make decisions to look after themselves in the way that they normally would have. So you're kind of always worrying about, have they eaten the food that you've left? Have they had enough to drink that day? Are they going to get dehydrated? Are they too hot? Are they too cold? All those kind of physical needs. So kind of were worrying about whether those physical needs would be met. And also emotionally, I mean, obviously, an outside carer is never going to love your mum or relative like you do, but what you want to know is, are they going to be kind? Are they going to be empathetic? Are they going to be accepting of her? Because, dementia comes with lots of different changes in personality for different people. And I know that one of my mum's symptoms was that she lost kind of boundaries and appropriateness, and that was very, very difficult because she would say things that, she would never have said before, or she would never have shared with anyone before. And you felt kind of anxious, and she was vulnerable. So that was quite difficult. And what you didn't want was somebody to not accept that, or maybe even, in my mind, I was worried that people might even laugh at her because of some of the things that she said. But actually, when the carers came, and we built relationships with them, and I saw that they built relationships with her, it did alleviate a lot of that stress, and they were really good people, and they sort of spent time with her. They were compassionate. They did her very intimate care with respect. And I could tell because I could tell by the way she responded to them. On the days that I was able to take days off and be there too, her face would light up when they came in. They would have a little joke and a banter with her. They kind of knew stuff about her. There's photos out, and they talk to her about relatives and grandchildren and stuff, and they chat to her about that. So they actually made a human connection with her, and that did make me feel more reassured.
Thank you, Katrina. It just highlights the importance of person-centered care. I suppose just pulling all that together, if you had some key messages, Katrina, that you could share with people who are involved and watching today, our students, partners, what would be the key messages do you think that's important to hear from your experience?
What I think the most important thing I'd say is that, you can make a difference every single day. And I think you make a difference to the person you're caring for. And I think that's through, your empathy. They may not remember what they've said to you, but, the quality of how you behave to them in that moment will make a difference to them there and then, and reassure them, make them feel safe, make them feel valued, which is what we all want as human beings. So your interactions on a day-to-day basis with a person with dementia can make a huge difference. But also your interactions with the carers and relatives can make a massive difference, because I think the main thing I want to say is that, at the end of the day, you can't take this away. You can't fix this, because it's not going to end well, and it's a terminal illness, and it's not a pleasant one. But what you can do is you can really make a difference in the way people feel. And if you treat carers with, I know that what I remember is the people who treated us with a lot of kindness, compassion, and gave us time. And I think, at the end of the day, that's what I remember. And it made the experience, which wasn't a good one, easier to bear. And at the end of it, I still remember the kindness of those people, and I'm still very, very grateful for it. So it did make the experience easier to kind of to bear and to cope with. So I think that you play a massive role in the lives of the person with dementia, but also with their carers as well. I can't stress how much you can make a difference there.
Thank you so much, Katrina. It's really powerful, insightful messages as well. I'm so grateful for you coming along today and sharing that. And I
Thanks
hope
for having me.
possible you'll be able to join us in the Q&A perhaps later on if you have time. Thank you so much, Katrina, for sharing your powerful story, supporting your mum, and your experience as a carer. There were some key messages there I think we can definitely take away, especially around being kind, having time for people, understanding the stresses that carers might be under. And I know there are a range of local organisations in Kingston that support carers as well. So thank you. I'd like to move on now to our next speaker. I wanted to introduce Rebecca, who's our master's student. She's a social work student in her second year. And part of our students' experience is being out on placement, working in the community. And Rebecca wanted to share a situation where she was supporting a family. She will be talking about the case, but she has anonymised it in terms of changing the names of people so they're not identifiable. So a really warm welcome to you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Maria, and thanks for inviting me here today. I'm really excited about being involved in this special interest group and the opportunity for us to come together and share our experiences about supporting people living with dementia, something that I knew was so important from my personal life, and now I'm starting to realise also from a professional perspective. So just to introduce myself, I'm Rebecca Salamra, second year MSW student. I spent my first practice placement at Surrey Heath locality team working with older adults, which gave me lots of opportunity to work with people with dementia. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to share today, what would be relevant for this particular meeting, I really wanted to share two learnings from my placement about what I've come to understand are important for what it means to be really a dementia-friendly community. So to do this, I'm going to illustrate this through a story of an experience I had with two women, Anna and Susan. So Susan is an 83-year-old woman with dementia. She had a diagnosis for a number of years. And she lives in the annex of her son and daughter-in-law's house. And she is cared for mainly by her daughter-in-law, Anna, as well as having some support from care workers from an agency who come in once a morning for around half an hour to help her get up and shower and so on. So I was assigned this case and scheduled to do the yearly review, both for Susan and also for Anna in her role as carer. And that was all scheduled and organised and everything. And then a few days before we were due to visit, a safeguarding concern came in from the care worker agency. And they told us of an incident that happened the night before when Susan had, in their words, wandered from her annex and had gone far away from home, had become disorientated, lost. She had had a fall, hit her head, been discovered by a passerby, and had to go to hospital. And the care agency said that they were very concerned that Susan wasn't receiving enough care from her son and daughter-in-law, and that she was being left alone, that her son and daughter-in-law were going out to work and leaving her in the annex by herself, and that this was putting her at risk of harm. Now, coming at this from a kind of naive social worker student social worker point of view, my instant reaction and feeling was quite critical. I've got grandparents with dementia myself, and I thought, how can somebody sort of leave their loved ones so vulnerable and let this happen? But as they told us often on the MSW course, and that will happen as students and then for the rest of our career, as new information comes to light and you find out more perspectives from different people, your opinion about the situation and your assessment of the situation can change quite dramatically. So when we went round to visit Anna and Susan, I think the thing that struck me the most was the way in which Anna, the daughter-in-law, described what had happened and why it had happened, but more importantly, why she was willing to take the risk that it might happen again. So what she explained to us, and this was sort of backed up by her mother-in-law, Susan, who was really a part of the conversation. She explained how Susan had always loved to go for little strolls before her dementia diagnosis and ever since. And for many, many years had sort of been letting herself out of the annex, go for a walk till the end of the drive, walk along the houses, and then come back and let herself back in. And this has been happening without incident for a long time. And Susan said, agreed that this was something she really enjoyed doing, getting some fresh air and feeling independent. And Anna said, I'm not going to lock my mother inside. She's free to come and go as she pleases. And I believe that this sort of I'll say hobby, but this habit she has, that's the word I was looking for, of going is something that really is kind of keeping her feeling independent and strong, and keeping her going in many ways. And so I think what I realized was that Anna was in some ways putting her mother-in-law's needs before her own, because the easier thing to do perhaps would be just to say, okay, I'm going out to work all day, I can't deal with the stress and the worry of my mother-in-law leaving the house and not coming back, so perhaps I need to take some more measures. I have put a lock on the door or get care workers to be around her all the time, because actually it was Anna the one that was suffering because of this worry. Speaking to Susan, she was not distressed about the incident that happened, and didn't seem in any way to have any to be fearful, and expressed clearly that she wanted to continue to do this. So what this taught me is the first learning I wanted to share with you, and that I think that it's important to recognize that what's best for the person with dementia may not always be what the rest of the community sees as the easiest path, and what's best for the rest of us, and that sometimes we have to think, how to balance out risks with independence, and perhaps take on some of the stress ourselves of not being able to control the situation, because that's often what we may want to do, and actually think what putting the person at the center, what is really right for them. So that was quite a big learning for me, I think, as a student. And then the second thing I wanted to say was that after we discussed the safeguarding concern, we then went on to do the review for Anna and Susan. And talking to Anna, and she was explaining all the many things she does, all the roles she has. She's a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a teacher, and also the main carer for her mother-in-law. And the level of care that she provides, emotional, physical, and the manner in which she does it was so impressive to me. And as we left the review, I had this instinct to sort of say to her, like, wow, well done, you're amazing, like, almost like a pat on the back. And I didn't, because as a student especially, I felt that wouldn't be appropriate, and perhaps could be seen as patronizing or similar, so I didn't want to do that. But I did express to my supervisor how I'd felt, and she said to me, well, you haven't missed the opportunity to express to Anna, well, what you were feeling, but you can do it in a more professional way, which is through how you write up the review. And so she said, take time to distill everything that she's told you and build a narrative, show her story, and show through words in that review all of the wonderful things she's doing. She may read it, she may not read it, depends on the person, but it is an opportunity to share that with her. So I did, and as a student, we're always given a bit more time, I think, than we would do with a full caseload. So I was able to really put a lot of effort into that writing up of that review. And when I sent it to her, she did read it, and she phoned me, and she was quite emotional and very thankful, and said that it was really nice to be recognised from outsiders, for one thing, but also that she spends most of her time worrying that she's not doing enough and that she's doing it wrong. And it's really difficult, it's really tough. And so to have that reassurance was great. So that's the second thing that I learned, really, that the value of carers, and how if as a community, dementia friendly community, we have to be supporting them just as much as we're supporting the person with dementia, because by doing that, we're supporting everybody. So those are my two learnings, really. One is think that what we might think is best and safest and cleanest may not actually be what is best for the person, and we really need to put them first. And secondly, to really value carers, and to work with them as much as possible. So that's it. Thank you very much, Maria, for inviting me, and I'm excited to hear about the volunteering opportunities. And also, I'll be around for the question and answer session if anyone has any thoughts or anything they'd like to discuss. So, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing your experience there, and some really important take-home messages around seeing the person, not jumping to assumptions, and recognizing again, which I think builds on Katrina's experience, about the importance of how we support carers and really understand their perspective. So thank you, and I'm sure our social work students and nursing students across the board will be able to relate to your experiences, and I'm sure that will inform their learning. So thank you for coming along. And I know that you're going to be available for a Q&A. So any questions for Rebecca, hold on to those and we'll be able to ask those later on. I wanted to move on now to our next speakers. So I wanted to introduce Simon Barth, Simon is a team manager in Kingston Adult Community Services, and he's going to tell us about a situation that he was involved in. So a really warm welcome, Simon. Thank you for joining us.
It's a privilege and always a pleasure to be part of these things and to hear from from family members, from other professionals, and you guys. So yes, I'm going to talk about a case today that I'm using a pseudonym, a fake name, of course, to protect identity, and many of the things that I discussed that are part of the person's life have also been changed a bit, just to make sure that they're not identifiable. Yes, talking. So it was a pleasure to actually be asked to think about a case to discuss today, because being a team manager, I don't hold a caseload as such anymore, so I kind of lose that direct involvement, and it's always nice to really look back over cases and reflect on them, to really see the in depth the work that was done by the social worker involved and by all the services involved, and to really reflect on the things, the learning for me, reflect on the learning for me. So it's a pleasure to actually have the chance to talk about this particular case today. I'm going to call him John. As I mentioned, that's not their real name. John is a person with who has 5 children. He has advanced stage dementia now. He was living in the community a few years back. He'd been living in his own flat independently. He values his independence a lot, and other things that John particularly valued is his faith and his family. He, as I mentioned, he had 5 children. Some lived locally, some lived abroad, and he lived nearby to a couple of his children in his own flat. He was diagnosed with dementia a number of years ago, and initially he carried on living by himself. But as things progressed, he found it more and more difficult to live on his own. So he then moved in with one of his daughters. The family are extremely committed to John and to providing for his supporting him as he needed. But after a few years, the one daughter that was looking after him in her house just became unable to sustain it, really. It's a combination of John's dementia advancing and also her own circumstances, which is extremely understandable, and we see the situation arise a lot. It's very difficult for families to digest when it happens, but the daughter did speak up and say, look, I really am struggling now. And so as a result, there was, health, social care, the family worked together with John, of course, at the centre to look at what was the best thing for him. At that point in time, he unfortunately had lost the mental capacity to make the decision around where he lived and where his care needs were met. And eventually the best interest decision was made for him to move into a care home. He was in that care home for a number of years, a few years, and in time the family's situation changes, the circumstances changed, and the daughter who was caring for him before, her circumstances had now changed significantly, and she was very keen to, along with the other family members, for John to return back home from the care home. It's quite an unusual circumstance that someone goes into a care home, particularly for a number of years, and then returns back home. And I think this is the reason why I reflected on this case was because it was a really good example of professionals really listening to the family and John, and really reflecting on what would be possible here and what is the best outcome for John. A lot of multidisciplinary work was undertaken to look at whether it would be possible for him to return home. Health services, social services, because John's care needs were quite significant at this point, with his skin care as well as his dementia advancing. So his communication, there's lots of things to think through. How would this work at home? Because again, you do, the family really need to also needed to reflect on whether it was sustainable. Again, the daughter, it was sustainable for her to support John. Alongside other support that might be coming into their home. Yes, so eventually he did. The risk assessments were done, the support planning was done, and eventually John did move back, and he's still there and he's thriving. And the reason why I thought this case would be useful to discuss was because the most important factor in all of this was listening to the family, and it was also really thinking about what would be best for John. And the only way you can really think about what would be best for John is to put him at the centre, is to actually consider how what made him tick, what would be most important to him. We knew, I said at the start, that family was important to him. It was also observed that whenever family did visit the care home, he lit up. He was energised. There was an issue with him in the care home, actually engaging with moving around, mobility, and it's part of the reason why his mobility deteriorated, and there were skin difficulties. There was more care needed for his skin care and things. He wasn't really engaging as much in the care home, but when family came, he really did. He seemed to be energised a bit more. So you were kind of weighing up those considerations of, yes, there are risks with him going back to live with his daughter. There's a stress and a strain on the daughter. There's also some skills that she would have needed to learn. There was community health professionals would have to come in regularly during the week to look at for an expert view on things like his skin and things like that. But equally, there was a massive benefit to his overall sort of well-being and also his quality of life. That word quality of life is so important. And the only way, my view is the only way you can really understand someone's quality of life is by understanding the person themselves. And the other reason why it's such a good example, I think, this case, it's such a good case to talk about, is because of the multidisciplinary effort. The family, of course, at the head of it all, social services, health professionals, all working together with John at the centre to achieve the right outcome.
Thank you, Simon. That's just such a good example. As you say, working in a multidisciplinary way and having that person at the centre. Is that quite unusual in your experience, being able to kind of reverse the process and have the person come home?
Yes, I would say it is unusual, yeah. And I think there's probably all sorts of reasons for that. But I think that we do need to reflect as practitioners on our own thinking, our own analysis of our own care planning, really. In this, and what I mean by that is sometimes it's hard to visualize a different scenario for someone, particularly if they've been in that situation for a number of years. And I think it's a good example of always just stopping and thinking, even if you've had a case, if you've been someone's social worker, for example, for a number of years, it's always worth stopping and thinking about the person and about the wider circumstances. And are there other directions we can take? In this particular case, the family being so committed and keen to bringing John back to live with one of his daughters was a factor, of course. But I think that even if in other circumstances there may have been a tendency for professionals to think, well, it's not possible because they need that 24-hour supervision. They need skin. John needs particular care around his skin condition, and he needs particular support. So professionals might have been jumped to the conclusion that it just wasn't safe, or it was too much of a risk. But I think in this case, as I say, really listening to the family, to their explanation as to his history, his background, John's history and background, really listening to to John himself as best as we could. It was achievable.
Thank you. Some really powerful messages there, Simon. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing that case example, which I think really summarises, doesn't it? Listening to the person, looking beyond the diagnosis, challenging our assumptions and trying to think creatively. So some really good practice messages there. I hope you're able to join us later. We're going to have a live question answer, so there might be some questions for you there. But again, a huge thank you for being involved in the special interest group, and we look forward to catching up with you later on. Thank you, Simon, for sharing your experiences there, and really interesting that family were able to move their loved one back into the community. But we also recognise that sometimes, unfortunately, due to complex needs, that's not always possible, but being creative and making sure that we look at all the options. So again, thank you. We'll be having just a short break now. We wanted to share a film with you that Paula D'Souza from our Dementia Friends community group shared with me, and it was really powerful, and I think it brings home the importance of us all raising our awareness and identifying and noticing people who may be living with dementia, and look at the kind of simple strategies that we can do to help. So please enjoy this short film. We'll then have just a couple of minutes, really. You can just have a very short break, and then we'll be coming back with our question and answer session, and also information from our colleagues Laura at Kingston Hospital and also Claire from Home Instead. So we look forward to seeing you shortly. Enjoy the film.
The sun rises tomorrow morning from 7 o'clock here on 107.9 FM.
Right. It's not raining. Good. What? I've forgotten. Should I?
Just go sit down. Just go sit down.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that way. I don't what? Oh, I don't know. Could you please? It's my list. Shall I go? So I don't know quite what. Oh dear. Where's my bread? Chicken cheese.
What?
Chicken cheese?
Sorry.
Oh. Oh. I don't know. People with dementia have experiences like this every day. A little bit of understanding, tolerance and patience can make all the difference.
I'll tell you what, if you go into the seats just there,
Right.
when we get there, I'll call you, okay?
Okay, madam.
I can't get on.
Let me help you. This way.
Thank you.
Can I have a look at that list?
Yes.
Chicken and cheese.
Oh,
Let's go this way.
thank you. Find out how to become dementia friendly. Contact Alzheimer's Society today.
Okay, thank you everyone for the contributions that we've had from Katrina, Rebecca, and obviously Simon as well. And we just wanted to move on now with our opportunities to get involved in the Dementia Friendly Community Group. I think we've highlighted the need really to raise awareness, and we're delighted to have through our special interest group the contribution of our partners, and we have Laura, we have Claire from Home Instead. I'm also going to introduce you to Pamela and Richard, our colleagues from care homes, who will say a little bit more about their role and how they're going to work with us in the future. But first of all, I'm really delighted to introduce Laura. So Laura organises all the fantastic volunteering opportunities at Kingston Hospital, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about those and how you can get involved. So a really warm welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's lovely to be part of a new special interest group, and I'm very excited about the future direction of travel. So thank you for the introduction. I'm Laura, and I'm head of volunteering at Kingston Hospital. And you may know about Kingston Hospital. We're a district community hospital with about 580 beds. And we have a unique patient demographic. So I'm sure, as you know, we have an ageing population in Kingston and Richmond. And people in Richmond have the highest healthy life expectancy in the whole of Greater London. And that translates into the demographic that we see here at the hospital. So back in 2014, we did an audit across our care of the elderly wards and discovered that 48% of our inpatients on those wards had a diagnosis or received a diagnosis of dementia whilst they were in hospital. So that's pretty much one person in every other bed. So as I'm sure you all know, people don't come to hospital because they have dementia. They come to hospital because they've had a fall, or because they've had a heart attack, or because they've had a stroke. And the dementia just provides additional complexity to the way that we care for them, but also an additional responsibility in the way that we care for them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about dementia volunteering, which is one of the ways that we support active days and calm nights here at the hospital. So we have around about 20 active dementia volunteers. We've been hit hard by COVID. It was up as about 50 prior to COVID. So I'd say there's definitely scope for more people in the community to come and get involved. What this role is about. So we have on every patient's bedside a document called All About Me. And this document is a way of finding out the likes and the dislikes of the patient. And a really important story that I'm aware of is that we had one patient who refused to take her tablets. So she was offered tablets with cold water, and she was down as refusing and needed specialist support through a specialist nurse because she was refusing her medication. It was actually her carer who told us that she is a very compliant lady and she will take her tablets quite perfectly if you give her some warm water. So the All About Me document captures the essentials about what somebody likes and dislikes. You know, do they like taking their pills with warm water? So let's give them warm water. How do they take their tea so that they're not asked 20 times during their hospital stay, how do you like your tea? It asks them what name they like to be called, what they did for their job, who's important to them. So our volunteers are instrumental in finding out about the person who is underneath the diagnosis, and finding out all about them and documenting that so that the way we communicate with our patients is an integral part of the care that we provide. So our volunteers are instrumental also in getting some beautiful resources that we have locked away in a cupboard out and about onto the wards. So we could have the best bingo sets, the best twiddle muffs, the best doll therapy, we could have the best music, but if it's locked in a cupboard, it's not doing anything for the patients. So we really need volunteers getting our resources out of the activities room and at the bedside. So the volunteers are going to the RAG board, which is a detail board of hieroglyphics all about our patients, finding out who has dementia by identifying the forget-me-not symbol and taking those resources to the bedside. They can read the All About Me document. They can find out about that person's likes and dislikes. They can also make a very rudimentary assessment of the severity of that dementia. And then they're trying to find an activity that matches that person's cognitive and functional ability with what it is that interests them. We've also evaluated the programme, and it was a very interesting finding. We had an external evaluator called Nesta, and they came in and demonstrated that when somebody had the support of a volunteer, their actual mood and well-being increased by 18%. And that was a statistically significant finding. So we are finding that when the community come in with all of their love, all of their kindness, all of their time and talent, it's making a significant difference to people's mood and well-being. So the dementia volunteering role is valuable and rewarding, and do come and talk to me, come and talk to Lydia, my colleague, or anybody at the hospital about volunteering. There's just two other roles I wanted to mention, because of course our patients are that older demographic, and so they present with a lot of frailty. So beyond dementia volunteering, we also have a range of roles that are targeted at supporting older people to live well, both at the hospital and in their community. So we have 49 dining companion volunteers. So when somebody has dementia, they can develop a very sweet tooth, they can become very suspicious about how a meal is prepared, they can forget the fact that they're hungry. They can even forget to swallow whilst chewing. So we do have dining companions providing additional practical and emotional support at mealtimes, ensuring that that mealtime is a positive experience for that patient, just by providing companionship and making sure little things like the cling film is taken off so they don't have to worry about the dexterity in their hands. They can just focus on eating and enjoying their meal in good company. We have 10 community exercise volunteers. Now, these volunteers are working with patients who've been identified at risk of falls when they go home in the community, and these patients are maybe very frightened about falling when they're out and about in the community. And these volunteers are doing gentle movement exercise programs that have been prescribed by a physiotherapist with the patient in their home. And sometimes it's the act of getting out of bed, it's the act of brushing your teeth and putting on a bit of makeup that is so valuable, in as much as the exercise is going to tangibly improve somebody's physical outcomes. And we also have discharge support volunteers. So we're recognising that when somebody's had an acute admission to hospital, it's a crisis point in their life, and life changes often unrecognisably. They may be going home from hospital, they may be going to a new destination of care. And when people go home from hospital, life has changed, and we want to recognise and support their needs going forward. So we have volunteers who specialise in that transitional space between the hospital and home and put a range of support in place. So the way we work at the hospital as a volunteering department is to work alongside our colleagues to see where the gaps are in care needs and where there might be space for an intervention that will make a difference either to the carer, the patient, the person affected by dementia. And ultimately, we're all about restoring somebody's cognitive ability, somebody's functional ability, and seeing the person beyond their diagnosis.
Thank you so much, Laura, and such a range of interesting opportunities as well. And you were describing, and that's why I was so excited about the special interest group. So from Kingston's opportunities, as you know, we have students involved in physio, nursing, allied health, and listening to the opportunities that you've provided there, there's such a wide range, isn't there, as well, which I think will be so valuable to our students. And as you say, it's open to the community. So obviously we're looking at developing our students' learning and adding to what they're doing already, but some fantastic opportunities. I know members of staff have approached me saying we're really interested. Thanks so much, Laura. And just going to move on now to introduce Claire Jeffries from Home Instead. So a warm welcome, Claire, and we're delighted to have you here. If you could tell us a little bit more about your organisation and what opportunities you might have.
Hello everybody, I'm Claire Jeffries and I'm from Home Instead, and what Home Instead is a private home care provider. So there are lots and lots of ways of caring for somebody with dementia. Laura and Lydia, you know, that's very much primary, that's when somebody's in hospital, and I know that there are a number of people involved, Richard, I can see you, who are part of care homes for people who get to a point when they can't live at home anymore for whatever reason that might be. We are that middle ground where we provide care and support to people in their own homes. And just touching on what Katrina said earlier on, we provide carers to support the families to look after somebody with dementia, and it's an incredible role. It's an incredible role because, yes, we are often stepping into the shoes of a member of the family and a loved one, and working with families to support somebody to live as independently as they can at home, which is a huge role and a huge responsibility. I've been doing this for 12 years now, and to me it's all about the people that we recruit, and it's all about the people that we train to give them an understanding, first and foremost, of what dementia is, and then how it affects every single person with dementia differently, completely and utterly differently. And we talk about, if I lined 10 people up with Alzheimer's, all of them would experience it in a completely different way. So we need to treat those people that we care for in a completely different way. So as the same as Laura, we fill out all sorts of paperwork, getting as much information out of our clients as we possibly can, so that we can make it very special to that person that we care for. As well as providing care at home, I recognised many years ago that actually what was available in the community just wasn't there. It's so much better than it used to be, but there was nowhere for somebody with dementia to go. Her daughter said to me many years ago, "Where can I take my mum? I just want a cup of coffee." But actually, as Katrina said, she can be quite inappropriate with the way she conducts herself when she's in the public space. Where can I go? And I recognised that there wasn't actually, there weren't many places that somebody with dementia could go and feel safe. So we started to create safe spaces within the community, and we started with memory cafes, and then we added Love to Move, which we're currently running, which is a chair-based exercise program. We have Singing for the Brain on a Friday morning, all of this stuff which is specific to people with dementia, and it's a date for the diary. It's an opportunity for people to still feel very much part of the community, because I think what many people are guilty of is actually giving somebody a badge, and a badge that says dementia. And actually we need to see past that, and we need to see the individual and who that person was before they started wearing this badge. We've been running an Understanding Dementia workshop since the middle of last year, once a month, and we run it for loved ones like Katrina, people who have a husband or a wife or mother or father with dementia. And I'm just actually, in the room I'm in now, I'm just looking at a whiteboard that's got information from our last session on it. And it's got 3 names up there, and it's got a big box that says dementia. And then underneath it, it actually describes who those people are, so that the loved ones can remember that actually Mum used to be, I'm just looking at one now, she used to be a tailoress at John Lewis in Oxford Street. She had incredible dexterity. She was very creative. She was an amazing lady who loved dancing, who loved singing, who liked going to clubs, who went to certain places on holiday. That's the person that we're caring for, not the person that's got the label that says dementia on it. So in helping people understand what dementia is, understanding what the best language to use is, learning not to ask questions, learning to help people when they're feeling most anxious. And somebody mentioned doll therapy earlier on, and we often talk about how important it is. If you're a mother, the first thing you do when you pick up a doll is you rock it backwards and forwards, because that's something that we do as mothers. And if there's something that one person with dementia needs, it is to feel valued, it is to feel worthy, it is to feel that they're still very much the person that they were. And it might just be a doll in the lap that they can rock that can make all the difference. So all these different tricks that we might use and things to enable somebody to be the person that they were. All of these opportunities, all of these events that we run are available for anybody to come and volunteer at. It will really give you an understanding of what it's like to be somebody with dementia in the community, being part of something. So if you would like to get involved, we'd very much like to have you come and join us. We also have paid volunteering, if that's such a thing, where if you wanted to be part of Home Instead and wanted to be a caregiver with us, we would love to train you and work with you to be somebody who delivers the best care to somebody with dementia. So please do get in touch. But I wish you all the very best, everybody, and I really hope that you have taken something out of today. And thank you very much, Maria, for organising it. It's a great group. I'm really looking forward to its future. Thank you.
Fantastic opportunities, and thanks for the great work that you're doing. So we do have a question and answer session. I just wanted to say hello to Pamela and welcome Pamela. As well as our community groups in the hospital, we do have care homes that are interested in getting involved, but we are aware due to COVID it's been an extremely challenging time for everyone, particularly in care homes. So it's been a bit tricky, isn't it, in terms of giving access to volunteers, but it's definitely something that we're going to be working on in the future. So I just wanted to welcome you, Pamela, and if you want to just tell us about where you're from and how we're going to work together in the future.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. I'm Pam. I'm the Customer Relationship Advisor from Galsworthy House, so just more or less opposite where Maria is based on Kingston Hill. And at the moment, obviously, as Maria said, due to COVID, we can't obviously have any volunteers in the home at the moment, but it is something definitely that the home manager is actually looking into. We do have dementia patients in our home, and the Care in Homes group do actually offer, we're the only ones providers, care home providers in the UK that actually have our own accredited training course for dementia. And that basically is again available to our residents, families and friends free of charge, and all our staff actually go through it as well. So that was very valuable. I found it valuable when I actually joined because my background is not care. So coming face to face with somebody who actually had dementia for me was actually quite scary until I actually had that training. So, you know, I do understand where that fear actually comes in for people. So I'm excited about working with the group, Maria, and seeing where we actually go with it. So thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Pamela, and thank you for your honesty as well. And just also to introduce and welcome Richard. Thanks for joining us, Richard. If you want to tell us a little bit more about your role and how you're hoping to work with us in the future.
Thanks, Maria. Yes, I'm Customer Relations Manager at Sherwood Grange, just down the road from Pamela. Yes, we also have a dementia suite here, and we're very keen when we can to have volunteers join us. So once the world opens up again, you know, hopefully we can get in contact. I, like Pamela, wasn't in care beforehand. I've spent 40 years in the print, but I have had dementia experience before with my dad. So this is a massive learning curve for me still, and this group, especially that little film halfway through, it's a real eye-opener of what it's like to be a person with dementia, because that's something I didn't experience. And I remember saying to the nursing home, Dad was in going, I want to get inside their brain. And that's a great little film, absolutely great little film. But this little group we got here, I think is fantastic. And also, I've got to say, Claire, I've joined her for singing, and her team for Singing for the Brain on the Friday. What a great thing music is for people with dementia. And you watch people light up singing songs with Matthew. It's I said it's a wonderful thing. It's a highlight of my week. And it's a great thing. So hopefully when we can, you guys come down. We've got Kimberly, our entertainment manager, who's fantastic. And she's always wanting to better help and to do stuff. So let's see how we get on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And it's just wonderful, isn't it, making these connections with each other and the work of the group. And we're just so grateful for everyone's contributions, and also just going forward, we're going to continue to have regular seminars as part of this group. So one of the questions in the chat as well was asking us, well, what else are we going to be doing as well as exploring volunteering opportunities? So being part of this group, so for example in March, I know that Claire and Laura, your colleague Lydia, were interested in looking at putting a seminar on, looking at good communication strategies about how we engage working with people with dementia. So we're really keen to to pull on all the expertise in and share these resources, really, and also do events that you can learn today and put into practice tomorrow that are going to really make a difference to people's lives. So there's lots of things. Keep once you're engaged with the group, there'll be information on different webinars that we'll be doing, as I said, hoping one in March, and we'll get a date to you soon for that. So absolutely, this is just the beginning, and we're going to keep going. And we've also got some questions in the chat, if that's okay. We had one for you, Rebecca. So somebody saying thank you for sharing your learning on placement with obviously Anna and Susan. We know that you've mixed up the names, and it was really interesting and inspiring to hear. What would you say to other social work students about how best to work as effectively and person-centred as possible with people who have dementia? What were your thoughts on that, Rebecca, if you're happy to answer it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Well, I imagine that there are many ways to act in a person-centred way. And I think part of developing your professional identity as a social worker is figuring out sort of what do you understand by that concept and what type of approach you would like to take in your own practice. So I think from my side, I'm a little bit obsessed with the power of storytelling and the importance of listening to someone's life thread, their experiences, all the things that have been touched on today by Laura and Simon and Katrina, everyone really, understanding their interests, history, lifestyle, and so on. But I think in saying that, I think it's also important not to get too caught up in the past, because my experience has been that often when you're talking to the families or someone with dementia or the person themselves, there's a lot of comparison to what they used to be. And in kind of a negatively framed to like what they can do now and who they are now. And so it's almost like, oh, they used to be, you know, remember when we could do this or that. So I think so understanding the past story, but also taking that through and thinking about who they are in the present and who they want to be in the future. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. I'm sure that was just really helpful. I'm just checking through the chat as well. There was a question for Katrina, and sadly her internet, the joys of internet, has gone. But I did actually WhatsApp her the question. So there was a question there, wasn't there, from you, Laura, about how perhaps volunteering may have helped Katrina in her role in the hospital. Is that correct? So. And she sends her apologies, but I have got the question, and her response is absolutely. Volunteering would have really been helpful for her in the hospital, and somebody who can show empathy, I'm just reading the text, could add to the support given by the hospital staff, who are often so busy with their clinical skills that they, you know, due to those pressures, it's so hard to just sit alongside carers and families and explain what's going on. People with an understanding of dementia and who can listen with compassion and empathy, and she felt that could really support relatives in the hospital setting, but also even when relatives are being cared for at home. So when they leave the hospital, and that transition can often feel like such a big void from coming from a hospital environment and then home. So somebody who could kind of help them through that transition, a volunteer who was kind of connected to the hospital but then connected them to the community, which I think is really interesting. And as you say, compassion support made a huge difference to her and her mental ability to cope. So I think the volunteering work, Laura, I'm just wondering, are there opportunities from volunteering hospital to the community, Laura, or is it generally based in? Is there a link at all, or?
So I think that's where volunteering is going. That's the future of volunteering. So I think it's not just when people are in crisis. It's about rehabilitation, and it's about restoration of somebody's independence when they go home from hospital. So our discharge support volunteers do manage that and support that transition through a telephone service. But I think increasingly we need to think beyond hospital and think about, you know, people waiting well when they're on a waiting list, and people avoiding deconditioning when they're on a waiting list for, say, a falls prevention service, and people living well in the community. So I think it's volunteering across the piece as opposed to just in one site-specific entity like a hospital. It really is thinking about where people are presenting to services and making an intervention at that point of presentation.
No, thank you, Laura. Thank you. And that makes sense in terms of connecting up services, as we know. There was a question for Simon. Again, the joys of IT. He's unable to access at the moment. So, but I'm sure that he'll be able to respond to that perhaps at future events, just looking at how we're making services more person-centred. But I think our speakers today are a clear illustration of how we're working in the community to do that. I'm delighted with the event today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And I want to say a huge thanks to Anastasia, who's been behind the scenes putting us all together and organising us all. Alzheimer's Society got some fantastic resources. Just Google and they'll pop up, and also they've got local resources that are specifically for Kingston, but I know we've got a wide range of people joining us today. So just to end really by saying a huge thanks to all our speakers, to everyone who's joined us today and listened and taken the time really to get involved, and I'm really excited about how we can move forward. Our next event will be in March and I look forward to that. And as I said, just please watch this space. We're doing more. This is just the beginning, and we'll get dates out for you for our next seminar. So thank you for joining our Dementia Friendly Community Group, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.